We have to speak about the video for Take On Me.
That's not punishment.
Isn't it?
No, no, no.
I mean, you've spoken about it probably many times.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do with me here in terms of the history of the band or whatever that I haven't done a number of times. Because it's been 25 years and so if we were talking in 1988 and you asked me about Take On Me, that would be punishment.
I see, yeah.
Because there's been such a massive wave that, and you're completely fed up with everything, you know, that relating to that particular success, which was manifold and massive, and it was talked to death. So at that time, in the end, we all were completely sick of it, which is only natural. It's not because you don't like the song; it's you're sick of repeating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But then now, so much else has happened. You know, it's so long ago, and so many other things have happened in between that we have. I think. Well, I certainly have fond memories of. Even though we are still being asked the same questions about that particular video, obviously because it was pivotal. It was instrumental in a number of ways.
And groundbreaking.
And that's been said too. And in some ways, I guess it was. I think the only regret is when you have success like that, is that you don't really get to prove that you would have been successful without it.
Mm-hmm.
That
yeah,
is
it's hypothetical.
It's a strange kind of thing. So, and it's a silly way to go in your mind as well, because you won't be. But a lot of people say that it wouldn't have happened had it not been for this or whatever. And you'll always have that,
mm-hmm.
which is the only thing sometimes you would have wanted to. I've many times wished that we came out as a band before videos started to become important,
mm-hmm.
Which was exactly when we started. At that point, this was a new thing, and it was about to happen, and there was no way around it. So we attacked it in our way, and made use of it and made it interesting the best way we could back then at that point in time. I would have liked to have been a band, for instance, in the 10, 15 years earlier,
mm-hmm.
20 years earlier for that sake, where the focus would be much more on audio, so to speak, much more than it was in our time. And that visual, focusing on visuals has just become stronger and stronger, really, because it's the most immediate thing of our senses. The sight is very impressive, but hearing, in fact, is more important to have in order to keep for people. The loss of hearing is harder than the loss of sight.
Yeah,
when you can hear, you are in contact with the world around you emotionally in a way. Much more so when you can talk to people and respond to sounds and it means more to us and goes deeper into our system than we tend to think. So I've read, I don't know this because it's not my field, but I've read experts in this state that psychologically it's a heavier strain to you're more isolated from society if you don't hear than if you're blind, and we tend to think the opposite. You tend to think of someone who's blind being shut out.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting topic, but we're on Aha now, so.
Well, yeah, but still, I mean, the song, when we speak about the video, did it irritate you in a way that it became successful when it had the video?
And that it didn't.
That it didn't do well in the first.
Oh
version?
no! Well, we had. It didn't really happen exactly that way. We had a bum release one of the times, which was kind of a half-hearted release. Not the first one. The first one, all of them were half-hearted compared to the final.
Yeah.
The final was a proper campaign. It was a proper setup. It was everybody working towards an end, and we learned the massive difference between a company that was completely together and had a focus, and a company where that was not the case. So we very quickly saw how important it is to have a record company behind you. Now that may be changing these days, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
But back then, it meant everything, because you have to have a business partner who deals with the other aspects of it. Basically, you can be as good as you can be. Basically, you can be a great artist, but if you don't have good people around you, nothing is ever going to happen, really. And that we learned that fast. So the first release, I can't remember now when we shot the first video. It was the first video that we did was really silly, stupid, in some ways. But it was, most of the stuff was cut out, and we were left with a kind of a performance thing. Blue background. We were on like a boxing stage, a boxing ring type of thing, and we were performing. It was very simple. It was just us, very basic, with. But the response showing that was really the first contact we had with an audience, and that was very strong.
Okay.
But there wasn't. People couldn't get. I remember there were demands for the record. The records were not out in the shops. It was kind of falling apart. So they were not really behind it. So we, and it looked really. I mean, we were coming from outside, from the street. We didn't have experience, but we all realized that this is not how you do it. So we were, in some ways, we were lucky to have a strong enough set of songs, to be a strong enough band, to be kind of hovering between the offices in the record company. This was Warner Brothers. And the problem we have back then is that we are signed to Warner in America, but it's a satellite company through a satellite company in England.
Okay.
This is and then when we were released the first time, which didn't work, it was the English label, not the satellite of the US, but the English label WEA that serviced the record, and they had really no interest in it, because it wasn't their artist. So we fell between chairs, and we had a lukewarm campaign going, or lukewarm response really within the company. The only really campaigning member in this family, so to speak, was the vice president with the satellite company for the US. But he was not in US, he was in England, and so it gave us kind of a weak position.
You must have been confused back then.
Nah, maybe you're confused now, but we lived like that for a while. So
okay.
Well. But that's where it started, and then America picked up on it for real, because we were tumbling around to begin with the English company, not really having much interest in the band. And this is where the 2.5 release is coming from.
I see.
Then, finally, when America in the US started to look at it for real, going with Steve Barron, with Mike Patterson, and the people behind the Take On Me video were gathered. That happened, and then the rest basically is the public history.
Who did the treatment for it? Were you somehow involved?
No, not really. We were presented with it at an very early stage as an idea. So in that sense, we were involved, but we were heavily involved in finishing the album. That's where our focus was. And then we were presented with the idea, and we thought it was kind of interesting, because we had been toying with the idea ourselves of doing animation. And this is a type of animation, it's called rotoscope, which which is something that Mike Patterson was doing, and he won an award for a film called Commuter, which were later part of the Train of Thought. That's the Train of Thought video. That's really taken from the Commuter.
Okay.
So the Commuter, the Train of Thought video, is really what started the whole thing. Take On Me was made after. But when he made Computer, he didn't know that it was going to be an Aha video for our 4th single or something, because he was later on going to make Take On Me.
Right.
So he goes in a kind of circle.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was confusing enough.
No, I understood that.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much it was how much it cost to produce it?
It was expensive, but I don't remember figures. But it was expensive. It was I think about roughly 4 months to produce.
So that's a good proof that there's some faith from the record company in you. They believe in you.
They believed very strongly in the band. They put the money where their mouth was fully. So there was no backing off in any kind of way. Once they sat with kind of the whole picture, I suppose, and kind of realized, in their words, realized what they had, they went full force with it. And it was a very, very powerful campaign. So, well, I mean, it was a lot of hard work in the sense that we were doing an endless amount of little video clips, video interviews for the world, basically, for stations, because stations kept popping up. These were the days when all of this were kind of just exploding. It was, and just before then, there weren't really that many stations at all. So it was all changing.
Now, you already talked slightly about it, speaking about the song and about the video. Was there a time when you actually didn't play it live?
Didn't play?
Take On Me live?
Yeah, hundreds of times, if you're talking about television.
No, I mean at live shows, on stage.
Well, you have not real live shows, that they've been live, but there's been performances where you've had the typical sing-back situations. Or, I mean, the first time I performed Take On Me, singing it live, but that was just me. The band was playbacking.
Okay.
Then. That was the Grammy Awards. That was my first stage appearance with Aha.
Wow.
So,
the Grammy Awards.
So it was a kind of an interesting start. But your question is whether we have
played it in concerts
and not played it live.
Yeah. No, I mean not played it in concert at all because you didn't like to play it anymore.
Oh, in that sense. I thought you meant whether we were
technically
playing it live, or I'm sorry, of course that's what you mean. I don't know. I don't know, actually.
Obviously, you still love to play it because you still play it.
You don't need to love to play it. You play it out of respect for people.
Okay.
So people come to an Aha show, and maybe Aha was in that town or city 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and we're back in and we're playing, and to not play that particular song would be